The AZ Wildcats podcast brought to you by DraftKings, America's #1 sportsbook app. Now joined by the great William Brad Allis. I am Mike Luke. Hello, William.
Hello, Michael.
All right. Well, let's get our your thoughts on the ASU game before we start previewing the LA schools right here. Or excuse me, the ASU game. What did you think? What were your takeaways from that game?
I think Arizona let one get away. If they hit their free throws, if they secure some rebounds, I know people are calling into question. You know what? More bad things can happen if you step up and defend that 3-point heave than if you just wait for him at midcourt. So I don't have a problem with that. I know they've talked about maybe Ballo should have tried to miss on purpose, but with the way Oumar Ballo is shooting free throws right now, you were more than likely he was going to airball it. In which case, they have a time to amply set up everything, as opposed to even rushing what they rush. So my bigger problem is you look at the play, there's the one where Tubelis falls and just kind of was casual with the basketball.
Right.
Some plays like that, a couple rebounds they could have probably grabbed. But at the end of the day, it took, ASU having their best shooting day of the year and a miracle-ish play. Credit ASU for hanging around. Arizona could never really pull away from that game. And it further just cements my thoughts that Arizona can lose in the first round or they can cut down the nets, and every other option in between is on the table. This is just that kind of team.
Do you worry about with Azuolas Tubelis a little bit of a Michael Dickerson type thing here because when I watch him, Brad, he looks – and again, body language is one thing it's hard to read into, but he just doesn't look engaged right now. He doesn't look like the guy, and the fact that he's having to be substituted in and out at the end of a game, that's a bad look for a guy that was supposed to be a first-team All-American just 2 weeks ago.
He looks like he's hit a wall again. Last time it was due to injury. This time, I don't know. Is it conditioning? Is it, midterms? I don't know, but he looks physically and mentally like he hit a wall. And did the year before. So it is a concern because 2 weeks ago, he was the Pac-12 player of the year. And right now, I wouldn't vote for him.
I agree.
It's Hawkes, and it's not even close. Now, it also helps that, UCLA has a 3-game lead. And at worst will probably be a 2-game lead to win the regular season title. But, Tubelis is still having a very good season, but we're kind of exactly where we were last year, where he was struggling down the stretch. The problem is last year he was this team's second best player, maybe third best player. This year he's their best player.
Right. So you got Ben Mathurin, you got Koloko, guys like that can mask that. But now all eyes are on you right now, and that's something that you can't really get past. Now going on to USC right here. This is obviously a huge road, not necessarily for the conference because obviously UCLA's locked that up, but as far as seeding goes, because again, if you sweep the LA schools on the road, you're right back in contention for a 1 seed. But let's start with USC a little bit. Andy Enfield gets beat up a lot. I like Andy Enfield. I think he's done a great job at USC. And quite frankly, I think you can make the case that he's the best coach in USC history. Every single year, you're probably going to win 25 games. You'll get in the tournament. You're long, you're athletic. I know he's not a great X's and O's guy, but this is a program that you got to take seriously now and since he's been there, quite frankly.
This is one of those weird situations. Andy Enfield is a very good coach.
Mm-hmm.
There, I think, are some odd comparisons actually to Sean Miller.
Okay.
Where he's not a great coach. He hasn't had the signature run. Now, Miller went to the Elite Eights that Enfield, I don't think, has gone past the Sweet 16, or did he get to that one?
He got to the Elite Eight.
Elite Eight.
COVID year.
But to really elevate himself, he needs a couple more deep runs.
Right.
But they're USC.
Right.
They're not a basketball school. So the question becomes, at what point, because on paper, Enfield has done everything you can really ask at that school. The problem is he's probably not good enough to take him to another level. The problem is when they do have a guy take him to that next level, he's leaving for a better job. Right. So are you content with Andy Enfield? And again, they're going to be top 4 in the Pac-12. They're going to be capable of making second weekend runs. I don't think he can win a national championship at USC. And you could argue that maybe no one can win a championship at USC, except that, You have to get that special guy.
Right.
You have to get that Lute Olson who then stays. But if we're ranking coaching jobs the last 2 or 3 years, Enfield's third.
I would agree with that. And honestly, I think it's easy to make that case.
Dana Altman has slipped the last couple of years. I think if you'd asked me a year and a half ago, Dana Altman's the best coach in the Pac-12. Right now, he's done the 4th, 5th best job.
Right. I agree with that.
Cronin and Tommy have done the best jobs.
Right.
Cronin obviously has that Final Four to his credit, now has his league championship. Lloyd is, despite the fact that Arizona's going to finish second or in the conference, his numbers are gaudy because they could still conceivably, although unlikely, get that second number 1 seed. I think a 2 seed is a much more realistic possibility. And at worst, there are 3 in year 2. And so it's really a fantastic run. But yeah, Enfield, the problem is he's not winning league titles, and he doesn't have that signature run. Even, he had the Elite 8 run, but it's in the COVID year and we forget about it.
Right.
But he brings in really good players. He's developing pros. I can't think of a time he's been worse than 3rd or 4th. So in a weird way, he's a much better version of kind of what Hurley's been. Hurley's been consistently
I think that's exactly what he is. I think he's exactly that, in that you're going to be right in this realm, but you're going to be better than what ASU is. You're always I think if you're USC, you're ecstatic to be in there, or you're ecstatic just because we've seen the Henry Bibby years. We've seen the Tim Floyd, obviously won a little bit, but we've seen the
bigger ups and downs.
Years. Right.
And so my question is, at what point does he become USC's version of Ernie Kent?
Right.
And do you get the pressure to run him off chasing something better than you are?
Right.
In many ways, I think you want an apt comparison. He's Dick Tomey.
Right. I think that's exactly who he is.
With maybe not the lows. I mean, if USC basketball could potentially be better, but odds are anyone else you're going to bring in is going to be worse. You might have higher highs, but you're going to have lower lows. So to me, you just keep rolling with Andy Enfield and hope you catch magic in a bottle. Because again, also their fan base, I don't think cares enough.
Right.
It's a football school.
Right.
Let's say, and maybe this is a horrible week to bring up this example, but let's look at what Oates is doing in Alabama. If they get if Oates becomes Matt Painter, gets number 1 seeds, but doesn't make those deep runs, I think Alabama content with him? They should be, but I don't know if they are, but they should be. So, I think that's what you're looking at with Enfield. It's a football school, so I think Enfield has some protection. My fear for him is they're going to think, well, he's gotten us to 7 straight NCAA tournaments, but why hasn't he won the title? And you blow him out.
All right, let's talk.
Right guy.
Let's talk some of these matchups here, because there's a lot of interesting matchups here. But first, 4 Peaks, the official brew of PHNX Sports. Check it out. Downtown Tempe, or you can come to the Tap and Bottle watch parties. We're going to have a Tap and Bottle watch party this Saturday at 8 o'clock. We would love to see you there. 4 Peaks, though, will be there. You can maybe get a kilt lifter. Quite good stuff. Again, love to see you down there. Check out the show notes and the link in the description. And Tap and Bottle. Tap and Bottle again. Like I said, Tap and Bottle watch parties. Scott and Rebecca have done a great job. Would love to see you down there. Come yell at the screen. The great William Brad Allis has been down there before. Everybody has been there, like celebrities like Brad. You could come down there and maybe see somebody you grew up listening to. Just putting that out there. I'd love to see you down there. Tap and Bottle watch parties. All right. USC to me is interesting because they're they've got 2 good players that can really take over a game in Boogie Ellis and Drew Peterson. After that, you got it's your typical SC team. You got a lot of athletic wings, Kobe Johnson, Trey White up front. You got Joshua Morgan, Vince Iwuchukwu. But those are the 2 guys right there. And those teams are scary because when you got 2 guys that can take over a game, you can obviously lose those games. Those are the 2 guys that I'm curious to see. I'm assuming Courtney Ramey gets the Boogie Ellis assignment. I'm assuming Pella Larson or Zed Henderson get the Drew Peterson matchup, Brad?
Yeah, I would think they'll go with that combination most of the time. I think what will be interesting to see you can't let both get going. One of the guys gets his fire, gets 20, you're fine. It's when both are in that 17 to 18 range that you're likely in trouble. So my guess is they sell out to slow down Ellis, because I think that's an easier matchup for what Arizona has. You kind of bring, you bring waves at them. You bring Ramey, then you throw Boswell on them. If you have to, you throw some length at them. So Peterson gets 20, 22, you're fine. But again, if both guys are at 18 and the third guy's at 14, that's where that game becomes dicey. So Arizona really has to have a good game plan to stop basically the other four who are on the floor. And if you can do that, Arizona's a better basketball team. But USC is talented enough, they're athletic enough that they can pose some problems for Arizona. And if you're hitting from several spots, kind of like ASU did, then you're in trouble because, as we know, as we've just spent 10 minutes talking about, USC is better than ASU. USC is a legit tournament team. And again, built in a way that Arizona's a tough matchup for them, but they're also a tough matchup for Arizona. Yeah,
well, let's talk about that. Azuolas Tubelis, we've been talking about him. This is going to be another, you got to break out of it at some point here, you would hope. This is going to be a tough matchup for him, though, because USC, the one thing that Arizona has struggled with in the past has been length, has been strength, and has been athleticism. And USC, as we've always talked about, has an abundance of that up front. You got two of the leading shot blockers in the conference right there. This is a game that Zoo's got to step up. And I will say this, though. Everybody talks about how Azuolas had, his best game against Oregon of his career. I still maintain his best game of his career was when he dropped 31-8 on the Mobley brothers as a freshman right there, just considering who he was going against. But this is a big game for Zoo right here.
Yeah, to me, this one comes down to kind of strength versus length. Can Zoo and Ballo exert their will, get their positioning, which then allows, Tubelis is a skilled big man, but he's not a weakling.
Right.
When he gets his feet set on the block, you're really not moving him. And then he hits you with that little, pretty drop shot or whatever. Or is that length and athleticism going to poke balls away before they get there? Poke balls away, when you're trying to establish position, block shots. So again, it's really which team can exert their will with their bigs that I think win this game, unless one of the wing players for either team really catches fire. And that, again, gives you a double-headed kind of assault. So if suddenly you're getting 18 from Zoo and 18 from Ramey, advantage Arizona. But if it's the Peterson Boogie Ellis combo, then yeah, advantage USC.
All right. What are you going with? What's your prediction in this game, Brad?
We have seen Arizona rebounds from every tough loss. I think they do it again. I think Arizona's going to win. I think Arizona's just a better team. And in a weird way, they're playing for more.
Right.
USC, yeah, they can improve their seeding, but USC is going to be somewhere in that, 6 to 8 range, probably?
Right. Something like that.
Barring a huge, barring upsetting Arizona and then beating like UCLA and or Arizona again in the Pac-12 tournament. Maybe you can go up a few seeds. But, Arizona, while the one is not off the table, it's down, but you're really trying to play for it too. You're trying to stay out west. You're trying to, put yourself in an advantageous situation. Because, again, the difference between a 15 and a 14, especially for a team like Arizona that has letdowns, I think is immense.
Right. I agree.
Typically, yeah, that's one of the big jumps in seeding that we see. 14s are capable of upsets. 15s rarely are without
unless you're Santa Clara,
or who was it? Richmond, who beat Syracuse 20, 30, 40 years ago. I think it was 40 years ago. Gee, I'm old. But yeah, so again,
wait a second. Wasn't it South Carolina that Richmond beat?
No, Richmond, South Carolina lost 2 as a 2. This was like the first 2 seed to lose was Syracuse in like 87, 86. We're talking pre-Mike Luke.
Right.
We're talking,
Mike Luke was alive in 87, but very young.
We're talking Arizona playing Charles Barkley old, or Arizona playing Alabama with the novelty of like, we're actually in the tournament, not
right.
Oh, we've been in the tournament for 37 consecutive seasons. So yeah, but yeah, we're talking that. But again, there is a big difference between that 3 and that 4 or that 2.
All right, Brad, you went viral for something that was very impressive that you caught. Other people tried catching the video after it, but William Brad Allis caught it live. I want to get to that here in a second, but two things. More furniture, morfurniture.com. I made the big mistake of getting this thing behind me, not from More Furniture. And a guy came and it took 6 hours for him to assemble. He was here at 1:30 and he wasn't gone until 7:30. And he actually tried to watch the game here with me until I told him to get lost. But at More Furniture, you get great furniture and you don't have to worry about that hassle. Great prices, great setup. And they've got all kinds of furniture for people that are built like William Brad Allis and myself, or birthday boy Brody Dryden right there. All that stuff, morfurniture.com and Game Time. Let's just say you're like Brad Allis and you like going to, sporting events, or you like going to concerts and watching bad music, whatever the case may be. I think that Game Time could help you out because it can get you 60% off. And many times you can get in there and you don't need to have these tickets. Just go to Game Time, check out the show notes and the link in the description. All right, Brad, I want to give some kudos here to Dave Heeke right here, quite frankly, because what's going on at Alabama, and we're going to tie this into Arizona, I think is quite frankly, it's disgusting. You got Brandon Miller, who everybody knows is one of the 2 or 3 best players in college basketball, brings a gun to a conflict where somebody ended up losing their life. Come to find out that the perpetrator had texted Brandon Miller telling him that there's an issue about to go down. And Greg Byrne, Nate Oates both said that they were playing Brandon Miller because they knew all of the details. Well, come to find out, they now are admitting they don't know all the details, and they're still playing Brandon Miller. Then Brad Allis is watching the game, and he sees Brandon Miller getting patted down during his pregame intro. You got to remember here that within context, in the 2 years before Greg Byrne left the U of A, you had Craig Carter, who U of A had to pay $1 million, the state had to pay $1 million settlement to for felonious assault. Orlando Bradford, same situation as far as the assault. Elliot Pitts, it was a mess off the field.
Rich Rod allegations.
Right. It was a mess. And then you were about to have the Book Richardson thing blow up. It was a mess what Dave Heeke inherited. And I'm not a big fan of huge coincidences. And this has followed Greg Byrne to Alabama as well. Am I being too rough on Greg Byrne, or am I saying that, at some point you're the common denominator there?
I find it interesting. And I said this when Byrne was still here. It's a lot of stuff against girls and women.
Mm-hmm.
That's maybe the biggest concern. Again, Book Richardson, I could care less. I still don't think it's a crime what he did. I think it's an NCAA violation, maybe.
Right.
Who did it really hurt? I think he was railroaded.
Right.
Loaning Keanu Pender money and not turning the correct form in.
Right.
Boo-hoo.
Right.
The Elliot Pitts thing is murky because of prior relationships, but again,
he got popped with a lot of Title IX violations there.
Yeah, but prior to that, female student athlete. Craig Carter, female student athlete. Orlando Bradford, female student. Apparently, other things during the Rich Rod era, whether he is guilty of the sexual harassment, apparently there's some other things. Guys not being appropriate around women and around the football office. The young lady who lost her life. And let's caution this. According to Miller, and right now, according to police, Miller did not actually bring the gun. He was asked to bring a gun. But any way you look at it. So let's just throw this out. I'm going to make up a player. Mike Luke, playing for the University of Southern Arizona, has a DUI. Right? Even if he serves his 2-game suspension. But you go out and do a hand slap and finish it off like that, that's tone deaf.
Yes.
Let's say there was allegations of sexual harassment and you do a crotch chop or a tone deaf. Yep. First of all, you shouldn't be doing anything like that in your pregame introduction. I know I'm a 50-year-old man, white dude, middle class. The coach needs to know what is going on. You shouldn't do anything that hints of violence
And keep in mind, too, Nate Oates also was the one that said Brandon Miller was just wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, go ahead.
Okay, so let's just go back. Remember when Hassan Adams had his DUI? If he had done something that looked like him drinking a beer, like the Stone Cold Steve Austin, we would be up in arms, and rightfully so. It's tone deaf. Let's say you were the passenger in the car with Hassan Adams, and you did that. God forbid Hassan Adams had hit someone. I don't mean to drag Hassan Adams in this. You know, as terrible as the crime of drunk driving is, it's something that people across all boundaries have done or have almost done, or this is murder. And I've always said I look through things in the prism of me, my family. So I don't know anyone who's ever murdered anyone. I've never been close to, I've known a guy who's been in DUI. Unfortunately, I've known people who were he said, she said. But whatever you're doing, you shouldn't draw a comparison to something that has already happened. But I'll be frank. I know Nate Oates is now claiming that he's done it all season, and it's because it's the
care.
It's the TSA pat down.
Don't care.
Okay. Guess what a lot of people are going to think? Young black man being patted down by a white guy, they're thinking the cop controversy. You should not have controversy in your pregame introductions. So anything that hints to me of smoking, drinking, gambling, fighting, gunplay probably does not belong in your pregame introduction. Regardless of if you're BYU with the squeakiest, cleanest program ever, you probably don't want a guy doing the little, thing.
Right.
Just don't do it.
Right.
So why are you doing a pat down? I don't know. Do a 5-thing complex slap, knee, elbow, bash, whatever Kirk Kriisa does where the guy presents him with the headband or just don't draw controversial subjects. Especially when you've had a murder.
I do find it fascinating, though, that this stuff is all, to our knowledge, at least publicly, this stuff is all stopped since Byrne left. I do find that fascinating.
Again, I'm sure there's stuff we don't know about.
Okay, I'm talking the stuff that's broken publicly, though. The Carter, the Bradford, the Pitts, all that stuff.
There were bad stuff that happened under Livengood.
No doubt. No doubt.
Right? I can think of one.
Especially within the Dick Tomey era, for sure.
But I can't think of many that were that severe. Yes.
When you lose $1 million, when you have to pay out $1 million for a track coach, that's a problem.
You quite literally had a coach sexually involved with a subordinate student.
Right.
Forget everything else. Everything else, as bad as they were, they happen on college campuses to athletes and non-athletes.
Right.
It's just, and again, it's 3 or 4 within like a 4-year period. I'm sorry, the house phone's actually reading it, in which we never.
I was going to say, you have a landline?
We do. It's basically free because of my internet and my Okay. It makes my internet $10 cheaper, so we still have a landline, and my son doesn't have a cell phone, so he uses it once a month.
Right.
Okay, sorry about that. But yeah, it's again, the biggest scandals again we have had at Arizona since Dave Heeke has come on board have all involved NCAA violations.
Right.
And not that are essentially victimless crimes, except I guess if you think Arizona is buying players, but under NIL, none of this would have been illegal.
None of it matters. Right.
So we haven't had, again, have we had other instances we don't know about? I'm sure we have. You're on a college campus. It happens. Unfortunately,
but the things that occurred under Byrne, right? Agree. But the things that occurred under the things that occurred under Byrne are egregious, and the things that have followed him to Alabama as well are egregious. These are major, major problems here.
Yeah,
these are, it's just the way it is. All right. Speaking of which, getting back onto the field, I want to talk some Big 12 with Mr. William Brad Allis. But first, Candlin. There's a lot of kids out there that don't have what they need to be able to get through the day. Candlin, nonprofit organization based out of Phoenix, can get kids the support, the stuff that they need. Brad does a lot of great work with kids. He lives that kind of life right there, helping out kids that, fostering them that, let's be honest, a lot of kids would like to have somebody like that. Candlin is an organization that is there to help kids like that. Check it out, candlin.org and Mountain Mike's Pizza. Now, You might say to yourself, who's Mountain Mike? I don't know, but it's not me. Mountain Mike's Pizza, Oracle and Wetmore. Brad has been there before. He's come on the show with a cup. He vouched for the pizza. He vouched for the cup. And he vouched for the TV setup. If it's good enough for the great William Brad Allis, who we all grew up listening to, then it's good enough for anybody out there. Check it out, Mountain Mike's Pizza. All right, Brad, where are you now?
Let me say this about Mountain Mike's. I want to give them a little shout out.
Yeah, let's do it.
Had I still been doing radio, we were talking about this the other day, had a little birthday. Mike couldn't come because you decided to tear up your floor instead of celebrate. But Shu was there, Nate was there, Rob Lance was there. And we mentioned how, ironically enough, we're having a birthday party at 1 o'clock when we used to go to, IHOP at 1 o'clock after a radio show. Mountain Mike's, close to the old radio station, would have been a great post-game radio stop. So, yeah, go there. Check it out. It's good.
All right, let's talk some Big 12 right now, because now we're seeing more and more stuff coming out, and who knows exactly what's true and what's not. But it sounds like the money that was maybe promised right there is not what is you're looking at. You also read from, various accounts. You're looking that this could be a heavy streaming deal for the Pac-12, and the fact that we keep going weeks after week, and there's even by president's admission now that there has been no offer. There's nothing on the table. And even though they say they stand together, they can't guarantee the conference stays together. What is your opinion? We've talked a ton about Arizona basketball in the Big 12. What is your opinion about Arizona football in the Big 12, William?
I think it's, from a football standpoint, it's probably a lateral move at this point.
I agree with that.
Now, I will say this. I think it will be more difficult to win in the Big 12 if you're Arizona football than it will be to win in the Pac-10 in 2 years when you remove two of the better programs. But, Arizona football, it doesn't move the needle.
Right.
If Arizona goes to the Big 12, it's because of, 1, Arizona men's basketball.
Right.
2, Arizona baseball and softball. They got to replace Texas and Oklahoma.
Right.
3, Arizona's pretty rabid streaming fan base, to be honest.
Right.
And 4, what inroads they have in the Phoenix market. Now, I will say this. To me, it all comes down to money. I don't think streaming's bad. I was thinking about this the other day. You and I, we watch TV. Look, Duke's on. Or, Creighton's on. Oh, let's see what Sean Miller's doing. Kids don't watch TV.
Right.
My son watches TV by himself on his own accord less than 2 hours a month. My daughter's less than that. They're not going to stumble upon kids these days, unless something changes. It's not going to stumble upon and become college basketball fans by TV. It's going to be because they saw something on YouTube.
Right.
My son right now is watching YouTube and playing a game on my phone. He doesn't have a phone. That's what he does. He plays PS5. He plays, later we're going to go stream something on Disney because we got to watch The Mandalorian. He had to figure, he rarely, if ever, watches TV. So we got to think of that.
But isn't that go ahead, sorry.
Most of the parents of the kids who are going to be college athletes are in their 30s. A lot of them don't watch TV anymore. So if you can get and again, I don't know what the numbers, let's say it's 30 million kind of seems to be the cutoff. If you get 30 million from Ion and they want to make the Pac-12 their premier thing in their streaming service, I think you take it. I'd rather have that than 22 million by ESPN.
But if you can get 32 million though, and you're on linear and in the Big 12, would you take that?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you're Arizona, and I'm speaking for Arizona, you've got to be selfish and you got to go where the money is. Because again, kids today we care that they're on CBS. Kids today don't. I don't think. Right. As long as their mom and their dad and their girlfriend know how to get it on their phones and can stream it to their TV, they're going to be fine. So it's about taking care of your athletic department financially. And if that's the Big 12, great. If that is some kind of super Pac Atlantic conference where basically the Pac-12 champion plays ACC champion in football and basketball, great. It's got to be about dollars first and foremost. Obviously, you need some exposure. But if it's on Amazon or whatever this Ion, I don't even know what Ion is or whatever. If it's on Apple TV, people will find it.
But how lame is it, though? Now, from a competitive perspective, though, how lame is, and we're a basketball school, obviously, how lame is the Pac-12 with Arizona without the two LA schools? The Big 12 is easily the best basketball conference going. I think from what people in Arizona care about, like a big Monday with Arizona and Kansas at Fog Allen, that's not something that you can replicate with Oregon State or Colorado or Utah.
And from the Big 12's perspective,
yeah.
You losing Oklahoma and Texas. So what's a better Big Monday game? Kansas, right. Oklahoma State, or Kansas, Arizona? Well, I think Kansas, Arizona becomes what UCLA and Arizona was 20 years ago.
Exactly.
People forget it's still a big deal. But that's going to become this really interesting rivalry.
Right.
Because it's essentially, with the exception of Gonzaga, it's the big dog in the West, and they have history. Whether it's,
Brad Allis was at this history.
I've been to a few of them. I was at Fog Allen when Arizona came back from that 20 down. And then was there a few months later when they lost at the buzzer. But they've met in the tournament, 2 or 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
They used to meet every year in those events when it was Roy and Lute.
Right.
Roy and Lute were close friends. I don't know if Bill Self is friends with anybody, but right. I think it would really behoove, and I think, if you want to look at it, if they're looking at the four corners, and I don't know if they're looking at Colorado's hot right now with Dion.
Right.
It's not going to be
Utah's always solid in football.
And Utah gives you and they give you a travel partner with BYU.
Right.
If it's me and I'm the Big 12, do I try to poach Oregon and Washington? Sure. I don't think you're getting them. I still look at San Diego State as well.
Mm-hmm.
So suddenly you have Phoenix, you have San Diego, so you have a Southern California market. You have Salt Lake City, which you already have with BYU. You've got Denver, and you've got Arizona basketball. And then maybe, maybe it is an SMU or someone, maybe not. But I think Arizona has this advantage because I think if the Big 12 is looking, they need some non-revenue help because Texas and Oklahoma are great athletic departments, top to bottom. And Arizona basketball gives you a marquee. And it gives you a marquee. I mean, again, think, you look Baylor, Arizona. Let's say if Texas,
Arizona. I mean, you look at all these programs right now. Kansas State's kicking ass. Pardon the language. TCU. I mean, you have like 6 teams in the top 25 right now.
But you can't count on some of those programs lasting.
I agree, but I think
guess what you can count on?
Kansas, Arizona.
Yeah.
And as long as Scott Drew is at Baylor, yeah. You're going to be able to count on Baylor being in the top 10 as well.
So tell me realistically, what conference has a better top 3?
Nobody.
In theory, yes. Duke, Carolina.
Yeah, but there's a lot of questions right there. We don't know if Hubert Davis is Kevin Ollie or not.
No, at some point, yes. But at some point, Duke and Carolina will be back in the ACC, but that's a 2-headed monster.
Right.
They
got Louisville too. You got to imagine that Louisville eventually.
But does the SEC, other than Kentucky's the only constant there?
Right.
Our favorite overinflated conference, the Big Ten. In reality, there's one consistent program, maybe 2 if you count Purdue, but it's Michigan State. They'll always have 3 or 4 but if you can just basically pencil in, hey, no matter what ESPN, you got Kansas, Arizona, and Baylor for Big Monday is going to be hard to get used to, but
right.
I'll make it work.
Brad, let me ask you this before we sign off here. How many Big Ten teams get into the tournament? How many make the second weekend?
You've asked me this before. Honestly, I haven't looked at it in a while.
I know you don't have to look at it.
I'm going to say between 9 and 11 make it.
Okay. How many make the second weekend?
2.
There you go. All right, Brad.
And that's assuming Purdue doesn't flame out again, because I think Purdue's really good.
All right. Brad,
and I'll probably pick Iowa to do it, and Iowa will flame out as they always do.
All right. For the people out there, where can they catch William Brad Allison? Is Brad going to have any podcasts up soon?
I sure hope so. I'm so busy. It's work's kicking my butt. I've got
the kids. I get it.
I've got baseball. I've just joined a 3rd hockey team, and
Right.
I'm well, excuse me. Yeah, and I'm subbing in. I'm going to end up playing 7 hockey games this week. But I really hope to have something because I want to, there's some topics I want to get into that we don't always get to get into.
Right.
And I want to do some deep dives now that the season's winding up. But so eventually, but yeah, just work. I've been honestly, ironically enough, I've been doing podcasts and video for work. It's,
Right.
you know, the last thing you want to do after editing audio all day is go edit more audio, but there'll be something. And if not, I'm just going to crash all yours.
Right. Not a problem. Always welcome. He's Brad Allis. I'm Mike Luke. Jacob Franklin behind the scene. You've been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.